You did it! Yay! We made it to the end! Yay! I have posted a review sheet on Blackboard. Hopefully, if you need a hard copy, let me know. I'll give you a hard copy of that. Your prompt script, your final project, is due today. If you don't have it ready, again, just get it to me as soon as you can. It needs to be some script other than Death Trap that you have put together. And it should look like it was prepared to be at the first rehearsal. So you don't actually have to have, again, names and physical numbers because you don't necessarily have a cast yet. But at least have an example of a phone list or contact sheet. At least have examples of rehearsal reports and or performance reports and or whatever it is that you've properly tabbed and placed and all that sort of stuff in the book. But that's what I'm looking for. Just so you know that I know that you know what a prompt script should be at the end of the day. Yes? All right, so what we're going to talk about today is furthering your education and keeping abreast of changes in stage management. The biggest change in the last 10, 15 years in stage management, of course, is the computer. You can do all these forms online. It makes for efficient, quick sending of notes, sending of production reports, all that sort of stuff. They're fantastic. The biggest problem at the end of the day is that you are still having to make sure that if you were unavailable, if you go down for whatever reason, if you're in a wreck, if you can't be at the show, that anybody can come in and call the show. So the calling script is still essential. Having that prompt script that's a physical script with the cues in the script, with the information in the script, all, even though it can be handled 95% of the way on computer, you need to have hard copies of those things. And something that drives me insane as a technical director, you as a stage manager can spend most of your days on a computer. You can even spend most of your rehearsals on a computer, making notes and all those sort of things. A technical director and the crews are usually in the shops, either sewing costumes or building, sawing and hammering nails, and the technical director is usually not at a computer to get notes from you. And so having a box somewhere where you can literally have a sheet of paper with the information on it that stage manager, that technical director and or manager in the costume shop manager in the costume shop can get, and just lay an eye on it without having to log in the computer and sit down and stop doing the work. Especially if it's an important note, I would go by and talk to them in person. About something that may change physically, what color things are being painted, or what something's been cut, or something's been added at the last minute. But again, just sending it an email doesn't necessarily mean it's been received. And compilating those emails, those production reports at the production meeting is essential, just to make sure that everybody saw all your notes. Because again, sometimes you may have put it under scenery, and it really is a costume note. Yes. You may have put something about the way the coats hang on the wall, and really the costume designer is the one that's going to deal with the hangers that it doesn't hang that way or whatever. So again, you assume that it may be one note, but it may actually be another note. Somebody may not have seen it because they didn't look at all the notes, that sort of thing. Keeping aware of things and keeping a physical hard copy is very important as things go on. The change in light boards and the change in sound boards, the change in that type of equipment, the new innovations in the automatic scenery that flies in at the touch of a button, and all this stuff, the innovations that are going on, the LED screens as opposed to cycloramas in the back. There's always going to be new things, newfangled ideas. Some of them are going to stick around, some of them are going to fall through the cracks. You should be aware of them, and there's things like USITT and symposiums like that, SETC, ACTF, are important to go to and see these new type of things, to be aware of how they could change the industry. But again, I would say, out of every 100 things that comes along, 10 may actually stick. And it's just like with VHS and beta. It may not be the one you think that sticks. You may look at something and say, oh, this is surefire. And 5 years later, for whatever reason, it fell through the cracks and something else works better. But being a member of those organizations and going to their conferences every year, not necessarily every year, but often being a part, and each one of those conferences has a separate, like a Southeast region or a Northeast region or something that you can be a part of, a stage management consortium, that sort of thing. Speaking of which, there is a Broadway group of stage managers called the Broadway Stage Managers Symposium. I'm going to let you watch this little video about them.
Exciting, informative.
It's been amazing.
You have to come and witness this.
The speakers are just so passionate.
Informative, comic.
This has been fantastic.
I think it's like for everyone. Yeah, I really recommend it. Yeah. Just one word, I say awesome.
And they have an annual conference or an annual presentation or annual training session is what I'm going to call it. It's a week long where you can spend a couple $100. Of course, you also have to find a place to stay and food to eat. So even though the symposium may only be $250, it's going to cost you a little more to actually participate. But you can go have Broadway stage managers show you and teach you how they work and take you backstage and give you tours and all that sort of stuff. They're great. Again, they're very informational. A lot of times they're people who are at them are less stage managers than people who are just interested in Hamilton or something like that, for instance. And so sometimes they're not as informative as they can be, but again, ask questions. If you have a question, ask it. That'll change the timbre of what they talk about. Because the people who are there just to gawk will ask questions, and that's what they will talk about, unless you come along with some rational questions about stage management and how it works. So take good advantage of those type of things. Another thing that could come up in your history or your future is graduate schools. Man, there are a lot of graduate schools that all have okay stage management programs. I try and convince my students of this all the time. When you go and get interviewed at a university for grad school, or discussions over the phone, or however you're being on Zoom, whatever you mean, how you're interviewing, students get very intimidated because, of course, they're wanting to get into the university. My point is, you are interviewing them as much as they are interviewing you. So ask questions like, how many graduates in stage management have you had? Do you get your equity card when you graduate from this university? Some theaters, North Carolina State, other theater programs, are associated with a professional theater, and at the end of your tenure of 3 years of graduate training, you'll have enough hours to become a union member. The University of Alabama used to have that association with Alabama Shakespeare Festival. It was severed several years ago. It may come back, I don't know. The president of Alabama still has a big scar where he is angered by the past between the two of them, but hopefully someday that will be repaired and they can reignite a very successful program in stage management and acting that the people would enroll at Alabama and actually work at the Alabama Shakespeare Festival, receive training in stage management as well as acting in other areas. But make sure that you have interviewed your program to make sure you're going to receive the type of training that you need. And also, if you're going to work shows as a stage manager in a graduate school, you need to make sure you're somehow being compensated for that. Yes? So do I get paid? Is there a stipend that I make as a graduate student? Am I teaching other classes? Am I training other students? What is my responsibility to the university, and what is the university's responsibility to me? Yes? So again, find a successful program. If there's an area of the country you want to live, I would focus on going to a graduate program near that area, because those are the people who are going to settle there, and those are the people who are going to work there. If you're in Chicago, for instance, you don't necessarily have to go to Northwestern or a school that's in Chicago, but going somewhere that's in the Midwest up there is probably better than going to somewhere in Alabama. If you want to go to Atlanta, the opposite is true. Somewhere in the Southeast is probably better than going someplace up in Chicago, because you're going to have the same people that are there. Now, does that mean that nobody moves? No, people do move, but you're going to become much better acquainted with the people who are mostly staying there. So again, as you're looking at grad school programs, as you're looking at additional training, those are the type of venues and those are the type of things that I would look forward to. There is, wherever theater you want, or whatever place you wind up in the world, there are always theaters around, community theaters, professional theaters. Become involved at whatever level they are willing to accept you. It could be a crew member, could be a staff member, could be just a volunteer. But become involved, get to know the people and get them to know you. And I promise you, it makes the doors much easier to knock on if they know who's on the other side of the door, and vice versa. So, go out to invite people to lunch, invite people to dinner, join the people when they go out after the show. Whatever it is that you need to do to get to be familiar with the group of people that are performing or are producing, I would encourage you to become a part of them, because theater tends to be a very welcoming community. There are the last thing we'll talk about, outside of theater, there's a great deal of work in the field of television and of movies.
The stage manager, or floor director, is the person who acts as the liaison for the crew operating from the control room out in the studio. The job of the stage manager is multifaceted. The person acting as the stage manager or floor director will make sure to print out a rundown and have it clipped to their clipboard or at their prompting desk. This way, they also know what will be happening during the show. After grabbing a battery and a wireless intercom headset from the charging station in the control room, they'll make sure the studio lighting and video monitors are all powered up and in the correct scene for the show's first look. An example in this layout would be to ensure a color is selected, any accent lighting turned on, and the main talent lights also then turned on. Next, they'll turn their attention to the talent and assist them with getting their microphones and IFB packs clipped on, checking to make sure the batteries in those devices are of proper charge to last through the program. Any in-show movements will be reviewed with the studio floor personnel, such as the camera operators. From there, that person may help make any guests feel welcomed on the set, ensuring they are also properly mic'd and comfortable. During the show, they'll use hand signals to silently communicate to the talent, who will be presenting to viewers watching the program, but also watching with their eyes what's going on in the studio. Here are a few of the common hand gestures. Directing talent to a live camera. Indicating which camera is next on deck. Counting talent in until they are to speak. Getting talent to speak louder. Informing talent to smile. Reminding talent of their posture to sit up straight. Telling talent to calm down. Informing talent when there is a need to vamp or stretch. And finally, indicating when something needs to be wrapped up. In addition to handling any in-show lighting changes, a stage manager will also assist the camera operators as necessary during a show. One example might be having to route a different input to a camera's teleprompter, such as the program feed instead of the prompter feed during the weather block if this function isn't handled by a router in the control room. At the end of the program, they'll ensure the studio is neat, that the mics and IFBs are away, and any lighting or video systems are turned off before putting their intercom away and its battery back on the charger.
My name is Clare Gibson and I'm a production manager. I'm a freelance production manager, but I'm currently working at New Moon Television. I've worked mainly in broadcast, so we organise shoots. Production manager deals a lot, has a team of people working around him or her, and we organise everything from word go contracts, employing crews, organising shoots, budgets for each program, production schedules, everything that basically makes the program come together. So we get everything in motion to then make it happen, and then obviously do all the background work to make sure it doesn't fall apart. My father was originally a farmer, and so he didn't go to university. My mother was is still a special needs teacher for under fives. And then we lost our farm with kind of New Zealand, all the subsidies were taken away from farmers. So we were forced to sell, and then so my dad went back to university and then became a financial advisor. So he's worked in the financial institution for, I don't know, 20, 30 years since farming. So their number priority for their children was education. So from a very early age it was very important for us to get a good education. But I've got three siblings, and I was the one that didn't think education was important. So I was their most troublesome child. I was a good student when I was young in junior school, but then went to high school and was not a good girl. But then I just kind of worked out what I wanted to do, had a good teacher, kind of said, you should get into broadcasting or something that, you're a good speaker, a good communicator. So that's why I decided to get into that. But school was not my strong point for a while, and then I just kind of knuckled down and, yeah. If I hadn't had that teacher, I would probably have had 2 children, and be on the dole, living, pretty, not a nice life for someone who probably had a bit of talent. I went to university and started a BA in languages, and then crossed over into journalism school. And that suited me brilliantly, and I think that's where I really kind of came into my own. My siblings are all very in corporate jobs, so I'm the only one that's kind of more creative. My brother's a banker, and my other siblings are in recruitment, so we struggle to understand or appreciate each other's jobs, but it works well. As a freelancer, you do have to take the work when you can get it, and then I try and make the most of when I'm not working, doing other things, like whether it's a photography course or cooking courses or seeing what's going on in London. I used to, in New Zealand, because I worked in sport, I used to work Saturdays and Sundays and have Monday, Tuesdays off. And I couldn't not work, so I would work Tuesdays in a volunteer centre. So that was kind of something that kept me busy, but now I've thought, no, I just actually need to take time out and look after, relax. I'm not very good at relaxing. My mum would probably be my biggest role model. Yeah, she's a terrific woman. So she's had a lot of adversity in her life and it's kind of come through it. So I think if I can be as strong-willed and determined as her, and she's got a lot of patience. So yeah, I have a wonderful relationship. I think she still worries about me a bit, but doing all right.
If you're going to become involved or want to become involved in those venues, you need to move to places that produce movies or places that produce television. Don't live in Montgomery, Alabama. We may get a movie once every 10 years, which is great to work on and may lead you to some other position in Los Angeles. But I would encourage you to move to Los Angeles if you want to do movies. Or move to New York or Chicago if you want to do film or television. If you want to be on Broadway, Broadway is in New York City. And I promise you, I have several friends that work on Broadway, and it is as small a community as you're going to find at the Cloverdale Playhouse. It's just a bunch of people who just work in that venue and know those people, and they cast their friends. Do those friends have a lot of talent? Yes. Is it challenging to get inside of that little network? Yes. Is it impossible? No. I had a friend from college who was working as a waiter and just looked like a soldier when they were casting Miss Saigon. And the producer and director were having lunch and looked at him and said, "We've been looking for guys that look like you all day. Are you an actor?" And of course he said, "Yes, I am." They said, "Here's our card. When you get off work, come next door. We're looking to cast people." And he was in Miss Saigon for 3 years. Yes? So again, you never know when you're going to run into someone, but you've got to be there, right? If he wasn't living in New York City, he would not have met the director and the producer of Miss Saigon, right? So if that's where you want to be honest with yourself, if you can enjoy working at the Cloverdale Playhouse and having a job 9 to 5 and get the same satisfaction as you can of being a professional actor getting paid $20 million in a movie, do it. If you can't, if you got to be paid the money, give it a shot. Octavia Spencer did, and she is being very well paid and compensated and very successful. So it can happen to her, it can happen to anybody. Yes? All right, that's all we're gonna talk about in the class. Again, the test is next week. I'm gonna mail you the copy of the test. Just hit reply and add your answers to the test and send them back to me. I'm gonna leave you with this little survey. This is from the University of Iowa. I encourage you, if you've ever stage managed, to go ahead and answer it. If not, keep a hold of this video, and when you have stage managed, go back in, because they every year compile the answers to these questions. That's about 10 questions in the test or the survey that ask you your opinions about how things are done, or the way things are done, or what works best in the certain situations, that sort of stuff. And then they disseminate that information to those people who have taken the survey. So it's a great little, again, way to join a league of stage managers and become a part of a network, a group of people who are having problems that you may encounter along the way. Thank you all very much for your attention in the class, and I look forward to seeing you next year. Yay! Bye.
Hello Internet, I'm Nick Acciani, and these are my adventures backstage. Alright, so after like 6 months of not having a video up there, I'm putting up a video. I wanted to jump back in with the University of Iowa does a stage management survey every year. They started in 2006. They had about 300 responses in the first one, and now they've had over 1,600, which is awesome. And their whole goal is to just kind of, I'm going to read it right here for you. The goal of this survey is to identify trends among stage managers. While this study will never fully represent all American stage managers, it hopefully will allow us to analyze our agreements and disagreements, track our evolution as a field, and glimpse part of our future. I think that's pretty well said. It's professional stage managers, hobby stage managers, anyone who's stage managed. They gave out the survey back in November, gave the results in January. I'm just reading them now. But I did take this back in November, so I figured I would share some of my results with you. Give you kind of an insight to me and my jobness in stage managing. Alright, here we go. 11 to 20 weeks. Nonprofit theater. I've pretty much exclusively worked for nonprofit theaters. Counting only stage manager employers, I guess that would make 2. I'd say it's about 25% of my income from the past year. Been about 6 years, almost 7, since my first job as an assistant stage manager. Yeah. 30, or well, I took this when I was still 29. California. That's where I live, and that's where I work. So I put shadowing a stage manager because that's pretty much how I got all of my experience shadowing other stage managers. I have a BA in theater. That is my highest level of stage management education, and that was a BA in theater with concentration in acting. So, next. I am gay, so I'm a part of the LGBT community. I have not. There have been moments where I've not felt unsafe, but felt uncomfortable because of the type of theater I've been working in, but that was always addressed directly or indirectly by the producers or director. So I've never felt like it was a problem. Handwritten. I have it's rational but unrational fear of flags, stickers, and post-its falling out and not having the cues, and it just takes too long to type it up. I handwrite it. I always give a standby, which is partially for me, partially for them. I would say for me sometimes, if there's a lot of time between cues, or if I know the deck crew has to congregate in one spot from different parts of the stage, I will give a warning to give them time to do so. Yes, from everyone except for my sound mixer, because they need both ears on the sound, so how are they going to give me a verbal cue back? Usually video just for me because it's faster to say, but I have done projection in the past and I've gotten tongue-tied and messed up calling cues, so I use video. Sometimes I like to be in control of the cues and giving the cues because it's usually me getting yelled at if they're taken wrong, but you can't always see everything, which sucks because you need to be able to see everything, but sometimes you can't. So if they have a better vantage point or if they just need the timing themselves, I will let them take it themselves. Case in point, we had one cue at the end of the second act when I did Flea in Our Ear, where all my cues were taken off of the gunshot from on stage. The deck crew had cues as well off of that gunshot. Gunshot? The gun did not shat anywhere. We all had to take our cues off of the gunshot gunshot. So there wouldn't be a delay of me hearing the gunshot and telling them to go. I had them take the cue off of the gunshot. But I also called that in the standby and stuff, that you're taking your cue off of the gunshot. Usually all this is taken care of in the equity contract, which I've only worked equity contracts or like equity inspired contracts. But if I've needed more to get out to a theater, I have done travel transportation, but I've negotiated that inside of the salary. Always from the booth. I hate calling from backstage. I've done it before. I hate it. It's usually between one and none. But ideally there's two, so you can shadow one and then call one while they're on top of you. My laptop and my phone are like my lifeline. I don't use any. I use Word and Excel. It's likely, if I stage manage again, I would, before starting, I would try and learn the app. Rehearsal performance reports and scheduling, paperwork generation, like that type of stuff would be amazing to have. Hello, puppy. I've gotten jobs off of offstage jobs, and they're listings, they've called me, and usually from colleagues, from requests or recommendations by other directors or producers. Facebook, Flickr, Instagram, Toby has one too, LinkedIn, offstage jobs profile, podcast video blog, Tumblr, Twitter, personal website. All that is for promoting myself and promoting my dog on Instagram. Facebook, yes. Offstage jobs, yes. And my personal website. And Twitter. For me, hiring references are huge. Knowing who you've worked with and who has liked working with you. If you're coming to interview with me, I'm always going to ask you to bring a prompt book. Just because I want to see how you write cues and how organized you are. Doesn't have to look like mine at all or be organized like mine. But if I can look at yours and make sense of it in like 2 minutes, then we're great. I am Equity, I am a member of SAG-AFTRA, and I am a member of AGVA. I was eligible at 27, and I waited until I was 29. I am a TD, I do scenic design, I act, and I write. I've done the shadow experience in the booth for people, and I've done backstage tours. Right now, more satisfied. Back when I took this, dissatisfied. I was working all the time. It was not great. When I took the survey back in November, none. I might have had like 6 or 7 days off the entire year. Now it's a lot less, but in the midst of a show, in the midst of stage managing, I eat fast food pretty much every day. Caffeinated beverages, a lot. Alcoholic beverages, it's like 15 plus, 2 a night. When I'm stage managing, I'll come home, I will turn those TV shows on, I will watch 2 episodes with 2 beers and food, and then I will go to sleep. After my last show, I am consciously avoiding stage management work. So I'm concentrating more on my design and my writing, and when I stage manage, it does not leave me enough time to pursue those other things. And that's about it. Hopefully you guys go and take a look at the survey and see kind of where you fall into it. If you like this video,